Trump says he expects arrest and indictment over January 6th Capitol riot.
Damn.
This just came out this morning. President Donald Trump said Tuesday that he expected to get indicted on federal charges on January 6th Capitol riot. Supporters disrupted the certification of the 2020 election. He's a front-runner, election interference. Wow, on Sunday night, while I was with my family, having just arrived with Turning Point event in Florida, where I was won the straw poll against all the other Republican candidates with 85.7%, with all polls showing me leading in the Republican primary by very substantial numbers, almost everyone predicting that I will be Republican nominee for president. And as I am leading Democrat Joe Biden in the polls by a lot, horrifying news for our country was given to me by my attorneys. Deranged Jack Smith, the prosecutor with Joe Biden's DOJ, sent a letter, again, it was on Sunday night, stating that I am a target of the January 6th grand jury investigation and giving me a very short 4 days to report to the grand jury, which almost always means an arrest and indictment. Go a little lower to see if there's anything else. Trump added, so now Joe Biden's Attorney General Merrick Garland, who I turned down for the United States Supreme Court, in retrospect, based on his corrupt and unethical actions, a very wise decision, together with Joe Biden's Department of Justice, have effectively issued a third indictment and arrest of Joe Biden's #1 political opponent, who is largely dominating him in the race for the presidency. Nothing like this has ever happened in our country before or even close. And obviously on the bottom it says he's been arrested twice. So what are your thoughts on this?
Well, first off, the way he writes, it really should be studied, and I don't know what they should do with it. What are they saying they're arresting him for? For inciting a riot? I mean, he's not saying what the actual charge is. A target of the January 6th.
Is there anything else on the bottom, Rob? If you want to go a little lower to see if there's anything else we can zoom in on that.
It must have something to do with inciting it, right?
Yeah.
Like that must be the
his
charge?
attitude that day.
He was actually the shaman. He dressed up.
That was him.
Yeah. Look,
QAnon
it really makes you wonder if they had not done this New York charge, if this federal case had not happened, which happened to be on Miami, it has nothing to do with Florida, and now another one of these, it really makes you wonder where Trump would be at in the polls. Because it's almost as if the system is keeping him inflated by continually doing these things. It keeps everybody defending him all the time. We need to know a little bit more about the specific
Dave, you're
charge.
saying inflated.
Yeah,
because it's actually a good thing on the Republican primary.
We know he gets a bump every single time. More people feel that they have to defend him.
Right, every time.
So he's leaning into it.
It shows people, so of course he's leaning into it here. I don't think the guy wants to end up in jail. Again, we need to know about the specifics. It must be about inciting a riot, which they're going to have a real hard time proving because, there's plenty of video of him that day. Go peacefully here, And now we also know about all the feds that were in the freaking crowd and moving barriers out of the way. And so... this is just, oh man, the show must go on.
Can we all agree
we are
that
in the show must go on version of democracy.
No matter what, Trump's not literally ending up in jail. That's not happening.
No, I don't think so. There's
think about
always a
that.
deal. There's always a deal to be cut. He knows how to
I mean, that
jail,
would be
that's
funny because he could be in jail and still run for the he could still be locked up, which would be hilarious. That'd be like the orange is the new black. He'd just be orange. Orange would be the new orange. But Dave, you make a good point. It's
orange is the new orange.
Orange is the new orange.
Good.
That's just hilarious. You heard it here first. But like you would think, Dave, because this is obviously the left's tactic. You'd think that they would get it. Like just leave him the hell alone because all you're doing is helping him.
Look, I mean, the conspiracy version of that would be that they want everybody to be into Trump because they want him to be the nominee because he will not win. And that he is far more, again, putting aside everything that we discussed about DeSantis, that DeSantis is, from where I sit, clearly more of a mainstream threat to take out Biden in an actual general. You can get crossover votes. You can see it. Trump, if we're to believe the last election was true, right, and Biden got 81 million votes and Trump got 75, there are no new Trump supporters. There just aren't.
At all.
There aren't.
Yep.
I don't think there are new Biden supporters either, and again, you can question whether the election was legitimate and all of that stuff. But it seems fairly obvious to me. The system itself would love Trump to run because Trump will not be president, where the system actually doesn't know exactly how to react, whether it was DeSantis or even if it was Nikki Haley, someone that was functional, that could cross appeal. People are pissed at the Democrats. So there's some level of that maybe that's going on here. They just want to keep inflating him.
Fully agree with you. I think that there's a faction of the DNC that says we did it once, we can do it again. Trump's approval ratings, if you trust 538, are just as low as Biden's, give or take a point or two. And the age thing won't be an issue. And
What do you think about that? The idea that the machine, in essence, wants to keep Trump afloat because they want him as the nominee.
Pat thinks differently. I know that.
Okay. So because what? Because DeSantis can beat him?
Yeah, because there's every reason
the
to think he can
juxtaposition
bring
of
in.
a
You want to
young
go
DeSantis.
there? I'm going to go.
Put aside DeSantis, but that the idea that, forget DeSantis or any of the others,
Yeah.
that they want to keep Trump in the mix because it puts a sort of stain
So when
on the Republicans.
when I talk to guys behind closed doors who are pro DeSantis or pro Trump or anti DeSantis or anti Trump or just I like DeSantis, but I'm going to vote for a Republican no matter who it is. Like you saw Brian Kemp. Kemp was asked a question by the girl from CNN or MSNBC, where it's like, so are you going to be supporting President Donald Trump if he's the nominee? He says, I absolutely will be supporting him. He says, but you were the same one that wasn't agreeing to, help him out. He says, yeah, that's something that I'm not going to do. I'm not going to come, but there's no way in the world the alternative is Joe Biden. I'm not going to have Joe Biden win it. So, of course, I'm going to go support Trump. That's kind of good to see Kemp doing that. I think he's setting the tone for everybody else.
Sure.
But there's a few different arguments out there. One of them is, what does DeSantis know something the rest of us don't know? That's one argument, which is what? Is the establishment behind closed doors saying, don't worry, Trump's not going to be there at the end. It's going to be you, and you'll be the front runner running against these guys. Because there's a market of people that are saying, between the two, who's more establishment? DeSantis is more establishment. That's what the argument is, than Trump, right?
Yeah,
Trump,
I don't necessarily agree with that argument.
no, you don't have to agree with that. I'm just saying,
yeah.
in a market, a lot of people will say, between the two, if we have to choose who's more establishment, it's DeSantis. Not at the level of Mike Pence, okay? Not at the level of, maybe even Chris Christie, but he's more establishment than Trump is because he's come through the system, military, Congress, governor. He's been in it more than Trump has, right? Trump was asked a question by Mario Bartiromo on, how do you feel about the fact that people are saying you actually didn't drain the swamp? DeSantis keeps saying, you're saying you were going to drain the swamp. You didn't drain the swamp. The wall is only 50 miles and all this other stuff. That's a great argument DeSantis make. But what did Trump say? Trump's response was, he said, it's brilliant, by the way, what his response was. He said, yeah, you're right, but guess what? I've been spending time networking in New York. Those guys, I know who the swamp is in New York. I don't know who the swamp is in D.C. I just showed up to D.C. He says, first of all, when me and the First Lady walked up and we found out we won, we're like, oh, shit, we won. What are we going to do now? He says, it took me 4 years to realize who is swamp. I realized Chris Christie is swamp. I made a wrong decision hiring Bill Barr, hiring Esper, hiring some of these guys, and that's what he was saying. So to me, he is now coming from that side, but for them to say, this is going to help him or this is not going to help him and DeSantis is going to come in, if DeSantis is using that as a play, I think you're playing defense, you're not playing offense. But now let's say the other side, that they're doing this because they don't want DeSantis to be the nominee. If that's the case, why are all these liberal media outlets saying the following? This is what the liberal media outlets are saying the following. They're saying, DeSantis, Ramaswamy, and Haley got Wall Street donations over Trump, okay? Or Trump nominating Ray was a mistake, Chris Christie recommends. Why is everybody who is wanting this defending and trashing, even the liberal side is not playing consistent with them wanting a Trump over DeSantis? Because if they're thinking like this is helping out, I think if you don't fear Trump as a candidate, get out of his way. If you don't fear Trump and you're like, oh, we want Trump as a candidate, you do? Yeah, don't do this. Leave it alone, because now the whole witch hunt thing is now on steroids. What's the next thing? And what's the next thing? And what's the next thing? Guess what? While they're doing this, the two numbers that are the most consistent numbers right now, if you look at, the trust America has in mainstream media and the trust America has in the U.S. government, it's the lowest it's ever been.
Ever.
The American people, left or right, do not trust mainstream media, and they do not trust the government. So the organization we don't trust keeps saying, Trump this, Trump that. They're like, dude, I don't believe anything these guys are saying right now. I don't believe anything. So I think it's like the whole concept of, they want to be able to do this because they're wanting Trump as a candidate versus DeSantis. I think that's the DeSantis camp liking to hear that. There's this whole concept of selective hearing, that we want to hear certain things because it validates, the whole, what do they call it? The bias. There's a name towards that.
Cognitive bias?
Cognitive bias. Like you only see the stuff that you want to see because it agrees with what you're thinking. That leaves blind spots. And I don't think that's true.
You know, it's interesting, this concept that somehow DeSantis is more in the machine or more part of the swamp or something. It's like DeSantis has done literally everything any of us could have asked to fight the machine. Getting ESG out of all the Florida institutions. That's basically as big as it can get. Fighting the woke at every freaking level. The gender stuff in Florida, the race stuff in Florida. He has done all of the things that any of us could have asked. And yet still, and this is one of my frustrations with Trump, again, who I voted for, has been his level of lying on DeSantis, I think has convinced a lot of people things about DeSantis that simply are not true. DeSantis has said he has met Paul Ryan once in his entire life. Donald Trump has spent an awful lot of time around Paul Ryan. You can watch the compilation videos of him saying tons of good things about Paul Ryan over the years. Donald Trump worked with Karl Rove. I think DeSantis said he also has met him once before he was president. You can check me on that. So we have a guy who you can say, okay, he's not rich, so he'll be beholden to the rich or something like that. And I think all of those arguments can be made. But if you just look at the proof is in the pudding, who has done all of the things that they said they were going to do, and they're all the things that are to fight the swamp and fight the machine? The answer obviously is DeSantis, while Trump, rich, billionaire, okay, has in many ways been defeated by that very swamp. So I think you can probably argue that both ways.
Yeah, that's a good point. But for me, if we have to say, like, on the Trump side, here's Trump's style. Trump's style is flattery is one of his weapons. He knows how to control you through flattery.
It's also a weakness, by the way. Let's not forget that during COVID, now he admitted it post-COVID, where he said, I could never hit Gavin Newsom too hard because he always said nice things about me.
Right.
So this flattery thing works both ways.
Kim Jong-un, I love him. He says nice things about me, writes me love letters.
I don't disagree. I'm just telling you what I think he does. I think he does flattery. I think he is charm. I think he is charismatic. But I also think if he gets one inkling that you're not on his side, he flips on you so hardcore that he wants to destroy you. Mm-hmm. This is his mindset. By the way, like it or don't like it, that's what he's done. He's from New York. Yeah. Okay, he comes from a different lineage of.
He was a real estate guy in New York. You got to do some nasty shit.
They asked the question, says, so what do you think about Barron? What could you tell him? I like him a lot. He's strong. He's this, and he's vicious. I like the fact that my son is vicious. He compliments Barron using the word vicious. Like, you have to know, this guy really, if he's your father, he's feeding you stuff like this to you. Adam, the world's an ugly place. Don't trust a lot of people. Everybody wants to take advantage of you. There's only a few people. That's the stuff that I think he feeds his kids. And by the way, these are not bad things to feed your kids. It's work for him. And when you get to a level like that, you learn you've been screwed by girls, by men, by peers, by friends, by business partners, by politicians. But you know what? You shouldn't trust a lot of people because of what really is taking place here.
And he needs to give his son a speech like that because you walk around the world. I think his son's like 6'8".
His son is ridiculous.
It's going to be noticeable, and your last name is Trump. Yeah. You're going to be getting it from all sides. Yeah. That kid.
And by the way, when you take the endless BS from the machine all the time, the media and the politicians and everything, it hardens you over time. I think we talked about this once. Have you ever seen any of those old videos of Trump on Oprah or Trump on Phil Donahue from the mid-early 80s? They're incredible. You listen to this guy. He's saying, in essence, the same exact things, but his affect is very different because he's much softer back then. There's a pleasantness and a calmness where now it's gruff and it's angry because he's been through 40 years of insanity. So you can watch any of these.
And David, I do agree though, the anger, the vendetta though, because let's not forget all the Trump voters that I know that are going back for him. They're pissed off because he came in. They were colluding with Hillary, the FBI, cheating, called the media, fake news. FBI is all full of shit. The deep state. He has a vendetta where he's like, listen, I came in, I won fair and square. Look at the shitstorm I caused where everybody, even in his own cabinet, were against him to get him out. It's payback time. And I could see why some of the anger would come out, just like RFK. Bro, the government killed your father and your uncle. Guess what? That's where you have that attitude. That's why he's anti-war. That's why he's, pro, RFK was killed for what? Didn't want to go to get everybody out of Vietnam. He wanted to splinter the CIA into a million pieces. He wanted to, end segregation and stuff like that. So they had to kill him. So I can see why Trump is so angry now because, bro, Pat, if you came into a competition, all of us, Dave, and you came in, and before you even got in, Hillary was doing what she was doing with the FBI, with the fake dossier, with everything. The media's all, lying to you. And then all you have to do is you say fake news, and that woke up everybody to how much full of shit they are, I'd be furious too.
By the way, here's the part to realize on the anger side, okay? Are voters angry today? Absolutely.
Hell yeah.
Is America angry today?
Yep.
Absolutely. So guess who relates to that? The voters.
Yes.
Those who are angry is like, wait a minute, dude, you forced me to take the vaccine. I had a couple friends here from Ecuador a couple days ago. They're at the house, and we're talking. And he's talking about how bad it is right now in Ecuador with Correa. Correa is like almost about to come back, and the current president that's there, he's going to probably lose it because election's coming up. And Correa is like this ridiculous power trip type of guy who's wanting to take the philosophy of what Castro and some of these other guys did. And I'm sitting there saying, you know, we didn't take the vaccine. And him and his wife look at us like we're aliens. So, what do you mean? Yeah. Says, Jennifer and I, we didn't take a single vaccine, not a booster, nothing. Says, nothing, zero. I said, but my dad took it because he chose to take it. We didn't judge him. My nanny took it because she chose it. No, we didn't judge him. Says, you guys didn't take the vaccine. I said, zero. Says, Patrick, we couldn't go to the store. Mm-hmm. We couldn't go buy anything. Everywhere in Ecuador you went out, you had to show your vaccine card or else you couldn't go to a restaurant, you couldn't go to the store. You know those people, on what happened to them in New York, the restaurants that you put out of business, do you know what happens with a restaurant that's been there for 3 generations and my restaurant that my great-grandfather started, you cause it to go out of business? You're not like, well, I'm a little bit upset, but let's move on, guys. No, you're angry.
Yes.
You're angry. Yep. So Trump is connecting with that angry audience.
So I completely agree with that. But then if you think about it a step later, or just one layer deeper, you know, Trump also pushed warp speed. Trump gave Fauci an award on his last day in office, gave him an honorable, whatever you call it. So Trump made mistakes. That's one of the things that's interesting about the Trump base. They're the most radically anti-vax and certainly anti-mandate. And he was never for a mandate. So I'll give credit where credit is due.
Yeah.
But he was swallowed by the swamp in that regard. How many videos have you seen of Fauci saying we would meet with Trump and he would say, do whatever you want to do? The drain the swamp guy actually handed the keys to the castle to the swamp. It's interesting how the base does not seem to associate those two things.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.